it represents both residential and commercial. So for the English side of things, it's for rent and for lease. But in Quebec, Louer represents both commercial and residential. So it's a unique opportunity for us to showcase both residential and commercial listings on Louer.ca.
Hello, and welcome to Sink or Swim, a weekly podcast brought to you by RentSync, where we take a deep dive into the PropTech, multifamily, and rental housing industry. In each episode, we uncover the technologies and strategies used to help overcome operational challenges and increase the value of your multifamily investments. So, let's get into our conversation today.
Welcome back to Sink or Swim. I'm your host, Nicolina Savelli, and we're back after a quick summer hiatus for Season 5. On this podcast, I chat with multifamily and PropTech experts to learn how you can reach more renters, sign more leases, and maximize the value of your assets. And today, for the first episode of the season, I have Matt Danison, CEO of the Rentals.ca Network, to chat about the latest update from Louer.ca and the vision behind this rental listing site rebrand. Welcome back to the show, Matt.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Well, it's been over a year, I think a year and a half almost, since you've been on the show, and I haven't actually had the chance to interview you. So I'm excited to be able to do that today. And there's been some updates and things that I'd love for you to share. So can you please share with listeners what the Rentals.ca Network is to refresh them and what your position as CEO entails?
Yeah, no, definitely. So the Rentals.ca Network is a network full of 6 different rental marketplaces that expands full coverage across Canada. And we seamlessly connect millions of renters with landlords. And we're really passionate about helping renters navigate the choppy seas and find their next home.
Right. And your position as CEO, what's your direction? What are you working on? And what's kind of important to you as the CEO of Rentals.ca and the network of those 6 listing sites?
Just thinking about, there's a few focal points that really passionate about. Is just one, first and foremost, creating the best in class renter and landlord experience. And that entails a lot of things with product development and just, customer support and making sure our listings are safe and secure. So that's really kind of our core focus, is just making sure we have the best experience for both renters and landlords across Canada. And then secondly is just to build brand loyalty. And I like it to call it, how can we build the best fan club possible? So I used to go to a lot of concerts growing up as a kid, and I just really love live music. So getting that fan club of landlords that are going to advocate for your brand is huge, and also renters at the same time. So when renters walking down the street and they see a Rentals.ca key sign for apartments, we want that feeling to be warm and one of excitement in the best way possible, a good feeling that they have towards our brands. And so they will go tell their friends about how to find a place to live when they're on their search journey.
Absolutely.
Thirdly, is just really educating people about our brands that have never used one of our marketplaces before. So that goes into growth and how do we scale some of our marketing initiatives that we have in place currently.
Awesome. And I know you guys work very hard on your brand and the content that you guys deliver. And a lot of people look towards your rentals report, which compares rental rates across Canada. And I think people use that as a resource that really supports your brand and just all of the information and data that you guys collect, and really puts it together in a really great way that people can digest and helps the market kind of understand what's going on in a simple way. So that's awesome. Now, obviously, we've seen a number of updates come from the listing sites, those 6 listing sites specifically. We relaunched RentBoard some time ago with a new look. Now, can you share what the motivation was behind the Louer rebrand and what you hope to achieve from it?
Yes, Louer.ca, we're super excited. We have a great opportunity. Just to back up for a second, the name Louer, it's unique in the fact that it represents both residential and commercial. So for the English side of things, it's for rent and for lease. But in Quebec, Louer represents both commercial and residential. So it's a unique opportunity for us to showcase both residential and commercial listings on Louer.ca. And for the rebrand, rebrands are always really fun because you get to start with a blank canvas. And for Louer, we just started talking about Quebec and specifically Montreal and how much innovation is taking place, how much abundance of art is within Montreal and Quebec, and just a lot of creative people that we've met throughout Quebec and friends I've grown up with. So when we're looking at the rebuild for Louer, we really want to kind of mix it up and include some creative design elements that just were really unique to Louer, that represents kind of that culture, rich culture in Quebec. And so we went with a contemporary look and feel again to reflect the rich culture. And we chose warm pastel colors to kind of translate that warmth. And we spent a lot of time. I'm not sure if you've seen the homepage illustration graphic, but that was about 50 iterations to get that to where it is right now. And it started off with a pencil drawing, and the overall kind of vision for that was to think about home and kind of like coziness and have, again, that warm feeling, and with some creative aspects as well too. So we created the illustration after the pencil kind of sketch was done.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had kind of unique ideas like, hey, let's put this illustration within a real picture. Let's hang their feet off the edge to have a cool element. So it's just kind of going into, I think, what Quebec's all about is just really creative, in innovation and kind of trying things that are different. And so throughout that process, we came up with that illustration. We're super excited about it. And we just got that with a nice little new slogan on a billboard recently. So in Montreal. So we're super excited for people to walk by and see the billboard and hopefully have a good feeling about the brand, the new brand.
Yeah, no, it really does. You want renters to see themselves in the brand, right? And that kind of, it really speaks to them and makes them feel good about their experience renting. So totally get it. And obviously I'm in marketing and completely understand that 50 different iterations, it feels like something just like transformed on page in like 24 hours, but it always takes like months and months and months of creative iterations to get where you really want to be. So yeah, I totally get that process and tweaking things to achieve the ultimate look that nobody knows about, and it looks great.
No, thanks so much. Another quick thing is we want to also just offer renters in Quebec the same site features they fell in love with Rentals.ca. So intuitive map page search, which the previous Louer did not have a map experience.
Right.
And that's key for renters. They really want to zoom into potential location, neighborhood that they want to live. That was a really nice update for the new Louer.ca. And obviously having the brand be French first. So at default, when you visit Louer.ca, it is in French.
Right.
And this is a big part of the relaunch.
So what has been some of the feedbacks? It's been a few months, I think, since it actually went live. So have you received any feedback so far from the rebrand and maybe from landlords and renters?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of it has been around that kind of creative, cool feeling. And they visit the site and says, oh, wow, this is different.
Mm-hmm,
It has some creative aspects to it. Throughout the homepage, you can really see that, and just different colors that you haven't really seen on marketplaces before, with that more warm feeling versus a commercial marketplace. And so we've gotten a lot of positive comments around there. I was actually just recently in Montreal visiting with one of my favorite landlords, Aaron Dweck and David Dweck, and they mentioned the site's beautiful, and that was really great to hear. And ultimately for the Dweck family, we want to drive more quality leads for their properties and save time, in posting their properties and offer exceptional customer service. So I think with the new rebrand and some of the plans we have for marketing the new rebrand, it's going to drive more quality leads to the Dweck family properties across all major landlords and small landlords across Quebec. And then, for the renter, we're going to provide more quality listings and a faster, safe search experience and, more details on each listing as well too.
Perfect. Yeah. Now, obviously, you've mentioned a number of key improvements like the map. Is there anything else that you want to mention besides that? And I have another question to follow that up with, but any other key improvements on the website that renters are like using or that didn't have before? Like you mentioned the Rentals.ca experience. What specifically were they kind of like, what was missing that maybe you haven't mentioned yet that you have included in this iteration of Louer.ca?
Besides the unique design, and I would say the map experience is number one, because it was just missing before. So you get that kind of nice updated map experience. Unit-specific floor plans was another big one, especially for the larger landlords that have unit-specific floor plans. They want to showcase 3D Matterport tours for specific units, and that's really helpful. It saves their leasing team time when someone's inquiring about a specific unit. So
totally.
That was a nice update, and just promoted listings, ways that landlords could have more exposure for their properties. So if they have a lease up, now we have ways to promote their listings
Right.
in a way to drive more quality renters to their listings. And so that was a really big update. And then we did a nice, great refresh on the logo. So props out to shout out to Kristen at Rentsinc. She did an amazing job with the logo makeover, so it looks great. And also we just did some big updates to the commercial section of the website as well too.
Yeah. So can you expand on that section of the website, why commercial listings are so important for Louer.ca and why it was included?
Yeah, definitely. So commercial is pretty unique for us because it's the first, or the way commercial listings on Louer.ca is unique because it is the only brand within the Rentals.ca network that is currently advertising commercial listings.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense because of the name, and it previously did have commercial listings on the previous website. We did a lot of tweaks to create a better experience for those commercial listings. It's a really exciting opportunity for us to start to advertise and help commercial landlords advertise their properties on Louer.ca. The pandemic really pushed up the vacancy rates higher. I think there's a study, I think it was fourth quarter of 2021, vacancies for offices reached 16.5%, according to Avis & Young, which is a real estate firm in Montreal. And overall, there's 55 million square feet of commercial real estate, the second largest of business office space in Canada.
Wow.
And there was recently an article in Montreal Gazette that came out in April, and it mentioned, hey, this hybrid work environment could push up Montreal downtown office vacancy rate to up to 21%.
Wow.
That was a report from the Chambers of Commerce. And so it's a big opportunity where commercial landlords are going now more than ever going to need help advertising their properties. And we really think Louer.ca is going to be a huge component of capturing interested people that want to lease, restaurants, an office, a dental practice, and we're working hard on really driving eyeballs to that commercial section of the website.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to see this transition because at the beginning of the pandemic, it was like, wow, commercial's taking a huge hit. What are they going to do? How are they going to recover? And for listing sites like Louer.ca to kind of take that problem and actually be able to find a solution really for those who are now having to rent and don't have any other way of getting promotion or attention on their listings at a time, I'm sure there was no vacancies or very little vacancy for commercial. So now it's just kind of like, well, the education and need to promote is kind of, people are wondering what to do. And this is a great way of being able to get those out there and marry residential with commercial. I like how you guys have segmented the two and made that a very kind of easy experience for those who are looking for what. Yeah. So that user experience is very helpful.
Definitely. And if it does come up, if it does go up to 21%, basically free up 11.4 million square feet of office of space.
Wow.
So it's a lot of, there's going to be a huge need for help in leasing out office spaces in Montreal. So we're very excited about the opportunity.
Yeah. Now I'd like to shift gears just for a minute and kind of discuss the rental housing industry a bit. What do you think is crucial for listing sites to continue to satisfy renters to get today? What do you think they need to include? I feel like we've had conversations about them being outdated. And how are you guys kind of making sure that they're getting the experience that they want and kind of modernizing the experience with listing sites? I know you've mentioned a few things, but do you have any opinions on kind of how you're bringing listing sites into the digital, it's always been in the digital age, but into kind of today's age and with new kind of millennial Gen Z renters?
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now let's get back to the show.
I think, first and foremost, we're really working hard to make sure the sites are easy, fast, and intuitive for users.
Mm-hmm.
So that's key. And transparency is also so important. So that's kind of the second part where really need to show as much information as possible on the listing details page. So all the menus, so renters can kind of review the menus. Is it pet friendly? Is there parking? Does parking cost extra per month?
Right.
If it's a building, possibly renters might care about now. Hey, I have had this hybrid work environment that I have with my company. Is there a co-working space for so I don't just lose my mind in my small apartment, with a lot of distractions. Can I just go downstairs to the co-working space in the apartment building for 4 or 5 hours, take some meetings and calls? So there's a lot of things that are important now, especially post-pandemic, that you need to make sure to include in your listings. And so, next, renters, I think, just really wants to know about the location, neighborhood. And we provide some really great neighborhood scores from a company called Local Logic, actually out of Montreal. And it showcases like 16 different scores around that location of your address.
Right.
So that's really helpful for renters that we offer now on Louer.ca currently. Just making sure also that we have a fraud analyst coupled with AI that make sure listings are very safe and it goes through a rigorous process for every single listing that goes on the website. So renters that previously maybe use other classified sites and run into some kind of interesting or sketchy situations with price too good to be true, we really take that into account and make sure our marketplaces are really safe across the board.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, it feels like we are evolving as listing sites become less listing sites, more marketplaces, and more catered to the audience that they're trying to help. It's not just here's a place to live and that's it. You figure out the rest. So I love all of the things that you just mentioned. I think that if I was at an age of renting, those would all be kind of important parts of my search process. And obviously price conscious and all of those things are top of mind for a lot of young renters right now. So that's super helpful. Now, switching gears to the landlord side of things, when using rental listing sites and kind of optimizing your listings, what would you recommend they be investing in to make listings stand out?
Yeah, there's a handful of things on that. So you have to have a good set of photos, and that's so key. Just having good transparency through photos, making sure you take photos of kind of the good, bad, and ugly. I feel like sometimes you see some really attractive photos, but the renter will go to the unit and be disappointed because they find some that wasn't previously on the listing.
Absolutely.
So make sure you have, transparency is key. So, and really 3D tours especially during the pandemic, spiked so much, and that's extremely helpful for someone. They don't have to go drive downtown, struggle with parking, pay the big parking fee to go view the listing. They can sit there on the couch, walk through the entire listing with a 3D tour. Matterports, we have a lot of Matterport tours on all of our brands, and that's a great way to just get more quality leads through the door. Especially with vacancy rates being low in some of the markets, some landlords have a ton of leads coming through. So if you want to increase quality, make sure that there's more transparency there and provide those 3D tours. It's super helpful for renters and your leasing agents as well too. So they don't have to call up and ask questions about different rooms in the place. They can really see everything through that 3D experience. It's really important. So, amenities and making sure everything's there on details is great. Here's something that I think landlords have a great opportunity to improve their listings on. And I don't see it often, but the ones that do, it really stands out. And that's just painting a picture of what someone's weekly routine could look like if they lived at that property location.
Right.
So one thing is really selling or showcasing your property, all the amenities and everything about it. But the second component of really attracting a renter is talking about the surrounding area. People inhabit or, love routine. And so, they'll talking about and painting a picture of, that possible routine could add a lot of value to that property's location. And that could be, hey, there's a farmer's market 2 blocks away on Fridays. And so someone can think, hey, on Fridays after work, I'm going to go to this farmer's market, get some vegetables and, to cook a nice meal over the weekend, and talk about that coupled with like a nice park or restaurants or cool coffee shops. Anything that you think is going to be really important. Easy transportation, is the metro a hop and a skip away? If it is, make sure you mention that. So you're talking about all the different aspects that could attract a renter to that location of your property location. You're kind of just creating the best of what's around that address, right?
Totally.
And then you're painting a picture of what someone's routine could look like if they lived at your property.
Yeah, you're telling a story for it's marketing 101, but oftentimes certain people who are writing these listings aren't fully either maybe aren't marketers or don't maybe fully understand the scope of what they need to include in those details. So I think if you want to stand out, that you have to kind of go above and beyond in your content now.
Exactly. Especially if you don't have all the fancy, renovated,
Right.
or if all the fancy new home gadgets that some of the listings have, or if you don't have some of the, amazing features some of the new rentals have, you can really spend time making sure that the renter understands that this location is top notch because X, Y, and Z of what's around. So.
Totally. No, it makes sense. I know we did a webinar a while ago about how to improve your rental listings, and we touched on a lot of those things, but I think that you've kind of driven the point home that people really need to be transparent, and noting what's around is really important, especially in large cities where it's hard to get around and becoming harder and harder to get around. It's important to know what it's, and less people are buying cars and there's less parking spots. So it's like, how are people going to even get from point A to point B? So being able to communicate how you can get places and the ease of transportation or the ease of accessibility is super important for renters to note, especially with those locations like in Montreal.
No, totally agree.
So now that I've got you here, I'd also love to chat about the Rentals.ca report, which kind of tackles rent rates and gets a lot of coverage. And I mentioned it earlier about, its in-depth analysis across Canada. Can you kind of share a quick review of the trends you're seeing in rental rates right now? Any cities that are really that have taken off during the pandemic and maybe are regressing slightly, or maybe opposite, those that regressed but are now coming back stronger than ever?
It's been a media storm with our reports recently. There's just been a lot going on, and Paul Danison has been doing a great job with all of that. And some of the things that have, with some of the main things that are coming as far as what's happening across Canada is prices are going up on major cities and some of the smaller cities as well too. And that's just higher interest rates are keeping home sellers from listing their properties, which ultimately leads to higher demand in the rental market.
Right.
Immigration remains elevated, and the unemployment rate nationwide remains near historic lows. So the rental market demand remains strong. You also have workers returning to the office or boosting rents in downtown metros, and so there's a handful of things that are going on and really driving some rents up. And so Canada needs more supply, bottom line, and any creative way through policy, especially to make it easier for landlords to, put shovels in the ground and create more supply, or additional laneway suites was a creative one. But it really supplies the big issue here. We have all-time record highs immigration, which is great. And there's just a lot of pressure coming from all angles on the rental market. So we just, we really need more supply. So that's kind of the main thing happening right now. So.
Yeah, I heard, and I don't know if it's true, but they've increased, there's a new policy that they've increased the cost by 46% for new development builds, residential development builds. I believe that was in Toronto, and I don't know how recent that was, but it just made me shake my head because I just don't understand why they would want to make it any harder for people to build for rentals. It just, this is just what we need. And we've been having this conversation for the last 2.5 years, basically, almost every day. Every time I get on this podcast, I talk about supply.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why the policies aren't reflecting that. It's just, it's an unfortunate situation that renters are facing this kind of continued upward trend, and there's nothing that can be really done about it. The costs of things are becoming harder too for building, and finding labor to do the builds also very difficult. So yeah, it's definitely a problem, and it really can't be fixed in a 30-minute podcast episode. But.
No, definitely. But it's tough. I mean, the supply constraints on lumber, spiked during the pandemic, and it still is high. So
yeah,
there's a lot of reasons why it is tough to build. So any creative solutions, even outside of policy, there are some affordable housing initiatives that are going on, but we need more, bottom line. So, supply is key. And yeah, again, there's so many reasons that are pushing demand up, and just don't have enough supply.
Yeah. And I mean, we just talked about commercial. Have you seen any instances where commercial properties have now turned into maybe hybrid residential commercial, or have gone complete residential at all, or any instances of that you foresee happening?
In some cases, yes. We'll see, some like commercial landlords doing a hybrid version, and we have seen some of that across the country, but not in a significant amount. But we have seen some of it.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess what my question really is, what's next for the Rentals.ca network? Are there any more rebrands in the pipeline or new features on the way?
Yeah, I mean, we have, we're always just focusing every day, trying to make the experience as best as possible. Number one focus. And I can't mention, we do have some side things. I'm trying to think what, let's see. So one thing that we're currently working on is making our websites, our marketplaces faster. Just goals to make it lightning fast. So when a renter goes and visits Louer.ca, the pages load super fast. And it's really important. You think about it, the next generation of renters, they have a lower attention span, maybe, but TikTok's to blame. I don't know. But, we're finding that younger generation is searching a little differently than the previous generation. And they're kind of searching quick intervals of, let's say, 5 minutes while they're waiting in line,
right,
or waiting for their Uber Eats, and kind of just in that kind of waiting phase for 5 or 10 minutes, less likely to sit down on a desktop computer and for a whole straight hour, and search, right? So these interval searches are key, and it's really important that when they land our web brands, then they load super fast. And if they don't, they're going to go somewhere else and say, hey, this is annoying. They just don't have that attention span, or they have a short attention span, right? So that's super key to make sure our sites are speedy. And then another kind of thing that we are working on at the moment is just trying to save time for landlords. And that's just creating different products and features that will make their lives easier. RentSync is doing some really special things in that arena as well too. So they're coming out with a really special booking app, a new version that's super exciting. I won't reveal too much on this podcast. I'm sure there's going to be a follow-up on that.
Yeah. We've had the booking app for a while, but it's nice to see that there's some new things coming from that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's one of the few items that RentSync has in the works. That's really exciting and definitely going to help save time for landlords and manage their properties a lot easier.
Right.
And then the last one I'll mention, I'm really passionate about, is this voice search. So that kind of the next iteration of search and what that could look like and what that I think will look like in the future. So currently, someone searches for a property, they go to the homepage and they click or type in, let's say, Montreal, and they land on the map page. And most likely they're going to be on a mobile phone. They're going to spend some time looking for the filters because they want to set their price and their bedroom and all their different preferences, pet friendly, for example. And that's going to take, a minute, 2 minutes, sometimes 3 to 5 minutes, depending on, for me, I have a bigger thumb. So sometimes I mess up on the filters just because my thumb's a little bigger. So it's a little tedious and it does take time. So I really think the next easier experience would be if you can just go to Rentals.ca and just click on an voice icon and say, show me 2-bedroom apartments in Montreal with hardwood floors and natural light under $2,500. And then that would take me straight to the map page where those filters, which I asked for, are already filtered. So I don't have to click anything.
Amazing.
And so that really is a vision that we have in executing this year and just making the experience overall a lot easier via voice search. And so we're super excited about that.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's good to hear. I know people, my partner specifically, who has big thumbs, and they also would probably prefer to use voice. And I also hate filtering. I feel like I'm always missing something whenever I go down or scroll down, and depends on where I'm, on mobile. It's always harder to find filter things. So to be able to do that filtering process via text is probably a little bit smoother of a process. So that's awesome.
Exactly. And then the one other thing around voice is, let's say you're new to Montreal, you got a new job there. You only have the weekend to search for places, and you land in, let's say, the Plateau, which is a really cool area in Montreal, and you say, oh, this area is great. Maybe the Mile End, you're like, okay, cool. In your car, right, you're parking, you're on the side of the road. You can just say, show me apartments. You can say the same kind of search. Show me apartments around me,
right,
under $1,500. That are pet friendly, have hardwood floors, and that would pop up on the map. And then let's say you don't have time because you have to go meet someone or you have a meeting, or you're just really starving, you want to get one of their famous bagels in the Mile End. And so you just say, okay, set a listing alert for this neighborhood for the Mile End. and that would automatically set a listing alert that would start sending you listings right away. So you don't have to click anything again. It's all voice activated.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's clear you guys have really thought this through. So that's great. Do you guys consider feedback from your renters and your landlords to create new features and kind of think about these things? And if you do, where would be the best place for people to kind of make those kind of feedback submissions?
Yeah, I would definitely do. Talk to thousands of landlords and renters to get their feedback. And that feedback is so key. It helps us so much. We're really thankful for any feedback that comes across. And the best place they can contact us if they have any ideas or frustrations with anything, we'd love to hear it, would be contact@Rentals.ca would be the best. And if they want to reach out to me directly, they can find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Matt, thank you so much for all your hard work and for taking the time to join me on this episode of Sink or Swim. And for those who are looking to find rentals in Quebec and that area, then you can head over to Louer.ca and find your next apartment home. So until next time, keep swimming.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye.
You've reached the end of another episode of Sink or Swim. Make sure to visit us at rentsync.com/podcast to access show notes, key takeaways, and where you can sign up to our newsletter to receive free bonus content. If you found value in this show, please also remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode. Thanks for listening.